Hey everybody, this is Kirsten here. Thank you so much for joining me today for this new episode of the Balanced Vibes podcast. I hope you're having a great week, maybe a great morning, evening, whatever it is for you. Right now for me, it is Tuesday evening, and Tuesdays are typically the days when I record these podcasts. I do a lot of client work on Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and then Tuesdays are more the creative days. So I try to create several podcast episodes for you. And by the way, these episodes are always based on the questions that I get from either my clients or my followers on YouTube or my followers on Instagram. So if you ever have an idea for a podcast topic, then make sure that you let me know. Or if we have had a conversation on Instagram DMs, for example, and I've helped you with something, or you've had a question and I have my 2 cents on it, then there's a good chance that I might talk about it. Of course, never mentioning your name, but these are just really great opportunities for me to understand what you are struggling with and what you need help with. So thank you for being inspiration for these podcast episodes. All right, so today we're going to talk about meal prep 101 really, and how I do this and how I recommend you do this too, because meal prep is really important if you want to stay on track with your health and fitness goals, whether you want to lose weight or you don't want to lose weight. But if you just want to be healthier, then eating most of your meals at home will be hugely beneficial. And of course, if you have a weight loss and fat loss goal, you just cannot do it if you eat out all the time, or if you order in all the time, or if you are not cooking at home. This is why this is so important to talk about. So today, after a little intro, I'm going to share with you how I personally do it, and then also what I eat in a day, what my typical day of eating looks like, and how I use then those meals that I have prepared ahead of time. All right, but before that, let's talk a little bit of what's been going on. What have I been up to? And just this past weekend, I was in California for almost 4 days. Had a really wonderful time. So we left on Thursday, came back on Sunday night. And the reason why I was there is that one of my favorite podcasts, well, my favorite podcast, Mind Pump, had a live recording where the listeners could go in and, go check out the place, check out the studio where they record their podcast, the little gym that they have there, the team members. We had the opportunity to talk to the hosts and meet everybody, and it was really great, and I had such a good time. I gotta say that I was a little bit nervous going there because sometimes, I'm just being honest with you, I'm not the most like the chattiest, the bubbliest person that I would just like easily connect with everybody and share everything with everybody. It's one thing to do it on social media, but the other thing, like in real person, is a little different. So I was like, oh, I don't know how this is gonna go. And I told my husband that, and he's so cool. He told me, well, all of you have at least one thing in common. You all like mind pumps. So what's there to be afraid of? You're going to find something to talk about with people. And he was so right. And after that, I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. So it was great. It was in San Jose, California. And of course, I lived in the area myself too. Before, I lived 5 years there, and we moved only almost 2 years ago. We moved to Arizona, but before that, I lived in the area. So I have several friends there, and I met up with them, had a really great time chatting for hours with a couple of them, even doing things like going salsa dancing, which is like, whoa, me. But yes, we did, and had such a great time. And then of course the Mind Pump event itself, it was really great. It was so cool to meet these people whose voices you are used to listening to all the time, and they are in your ears, and you've also learned a lot from them. So I gotta tell you that I have several fitness certifications, personal training certifications. I used to be a bootcamp coach. I used to be a personal trainer, in-person personal trainer. And none of the certifications that I have ever done has been as valuable as listening to Mind Pump has been for me. So really grateful that I got to meet these guys who've had such a strong impact on me. And I know that I have benefited from their knowledge so much. So if you are following any of my workout plans right now, or if you are my one-on-one client, then know that definitely the workouts that you're doing, they have had a lot of impact from these guys, and I've learned so much from their knowledge and wisdom. And now meeting them in person was also really great, seeing that everybody really is the way they are. And of course, why shouldn't they be? It's actually interesting that sometimes where when somebody meets me too and say, oh, you're exactly the same that you are, on your Instagram videos or whatever, And I'm thinking, well, who else would I be? Of course, I am like that. So it's the same thing with them too. Everybody was really warm, really kind, and had such a good time there. So this was why my little trip to California, it was so cool. And honestly, I still have a lot of friends that I didn't get to see this time because it was just a really short trip. But hopefully there will be another one, and then I get to meet them because honestly, for me, it's always the case that when I move or when I go to a different place, it's usually not the place or the food or those typical things that people say they miss. For me, it's more like the people. I love the friends that I have there. I wish I could hang out with them more often. And so seeing them is always really, it just warms my heart and just makes me really so much happier. So hopefully there will be another trip there or somewhere else where I have other friends coming soon. So connections really are so important, and it just gives you this feeling of love and connection, and just like being there for each other and listening, um, what the other person has had going on, and share some of your own stuff. So if you are somebody who has great connections, great friendships, family relationships, you're really, really lucky. And I hope that you take care of these relationships. All right, so there's that. And why don't we then continue with the next topic today, which is the meal prep 101. So first of all, why would you then meal prep? You probably know, but in case you don't, let me tell you a couple of things why meal prep is so important. First of all, you are going to be eating so much healthier when you are making most of your meals at home, because you can choose, you can decide what you put in your foods, right? You can decide the amounts that you're eating, you can decide the ingredients that you're eating. And of course, we know that all that has a strong impact on our health and also our fitness and physique goals that we may have. So what we know, for example, is that restaurants use a lot of seed oils, which we know for sure that seed oils are highly inflammatory. Also, a lot of other ingredients that many of us wouldn't probably put in our foods when we cook at home. There are many additives. There are many food colorings, things like that we probably don't cook with them at home. So when you eat out a lot, you are going to take in some of these ingredients, and they are not too healthy for you at all. And of course, the second part of it is that you cannot really control the portions as much. Even if you're trying to, okay, I'm going to listen to my body and stop eating when I'm full, the amounts of cooking fats, for example, restaurants add to their meals, it's insane. And it's going to be super hard to estimate that correctly if you are tracking your macros. But even if you're not tracking your macros, you just want to feel like healthy and good about yourself. You may still notice that if you eat out a lot, you start putting on weight. And I've talked to many people like this when they tell me that, especially with 2020 and 2021, people ordered in more or didn't cook as much, which is kind of weird, right? You would think that we had all the time in our hands to cook more at home, but people just, I guess, got a little bit more lazy and it was easier to order in. So a lot of people actually gained weight during those couple of crazy years that we had going on here. So eating out or ordering in, same thing, right? It is not the healthiest thing to do, and especially if you have a physique goal, especially if you want to lose fat and build muscle, it is very hard to do, because we also know that what do we need for weight loss and fat loss and muscle building? Well, we need to eat higher protein foods. We need to control our calories, right? And I don't mean obsessively control, but we have to track if we have a goal like this. We cannot be just guesstimating everything and eat out a lot, many, many times a week and hope that we somehow blindly hit our macros. This is just not going to happen. So I really encourage you, if you have one of these goals, like weight loss, fat loss, or muscle building, that you start cooking home more and really learn to meal prep, because this will be one of the biggest keys to your success. There are also other things, such as, are you actually hitting your macros? So if you are cooking at home, but you are not hitting your numbers, well, then we're not going to get too far either. But even then, it is healthier for you than eating out. And of course, we have to still realize that even homemade meals have calories in them, right? So sometimes I've seen people say, well, yeah, I make all of my meals at home, but I also make like homemade brownies and homemade ice cream and drink homemade wine, right? So we also have to keep in mind that even if it's homemade, doesn't mean that it's calorie free. So the best approach if you have a health and fitness and physique goal is to cook most of your meals at home, and then still don't go crazy with them. So make sure that you know what your ingredients you have, and that you are tracking your macros and hitting your numbers very closely. This is the way you get results. So I think it's obvious why we need to meal prep, and so how do you then do it, and why, and how do you make it a habit? So I would recommend that you take 1 or 2 days a week when you do a bigger meal prep. And I know it may sound like, oh my God, I don't have the time for this. And I get it. If you're a mom and you have kids and you have a job and all that, it's probably a lot harder than for somebody like me who doesn't have kids, right? But still, it will, at the end of the day, end up saving you a lot of time, and it would absolutely, I promise you, 100% certainty, save you money as well. And it doesn't have to take much time at all. How much does it then take? Well, I would say if you do your meal prep twice a week, then it's probably an hour and 30 minutes each time. So we're looking at maybe 3 hours per week. And you have everything done, everything's ready to go. Now, if you are a person who likes to cook everything from scratch every single night, well, then it's going to be so much harder for you. If this is your choice, you just have to make it work. I personally am not that person. I don't need to have a different meal every single night. I don't have to have everything super fresh. I don't mind eating leftovers. And by the way, if you are tracking macros, then eating leftovers is going to be a big one for you, because first of all, it's making you don't have to make so many different meals all the time. And it's also making tracking a lot easier, because if you already eat one thing for dinner and then you have the exact same thing for dinner the next evening, or you have the same thing for lunch the next day, then it's already logged, and all you have to do is copy and paste your entry into MyFitnessPal, and that alone saved you a lot of time. So meal prep, yeah, I would say probably a couple of hours a week. That's all it takes. And even if it looks like a huge time commitment at first, it really isn't that much. When you think about, what does it then cost for me to go out and get into the restaurant and maybe wait there and then sit and wait for the food to come out and then drive back home? This is a lot more time. Think about it. It really is a lot more time. So you really have to get consistent with meal prepping and understanding that couple of hours that you're going to spend every week is actually not that much at all, and it's totally worth it. So what would you then cook? And I'm going to tell you how I do this. Hopefully this will give you some ideas. So typically, I do my meal prep sometime in the evening. And I know for a lot of people, it's a weekend. For me, sometimes it is Sunday, sometimes it's another day. It doesn't really matter to me, but usually it's in the evening when I'm anyways cooking dinner. And I usually start with, either vegetables or protein. And what I do, let's talk about protein first. I choose typically a couple of protein sources for the next, 3, 4, 5 days, decide what they are, and then I just cook them up. So here are some examples. Let's say that I'm cooking dinner and I'm making steak, right? So if you follow me on Instagram, I always show that I'm making Butcher Box steaks. They are really, really awesome. They're wonderful. I love them. So while I'm cooking my steak, which literally takes me about 7 minutes, right? Because I sear them on either side per 1 minute per side, and then I put them in the oven for an additional 5 minutes. So it's literally only 7 minutes. So now when I cook up, let's say 4 pieces of steak, and we only eat 2, or sometimes even less than that, then I already have steak left over for the next day's lunch or dinner, right? So I just slice them up, I put it in a container, I put them in the fridge, and it's perfect the next day as well. So while I'm cooking the steak, I may also cook up something else while the steak is in the oven. So, for example, I could put a bunch of chicken thighs or chicken breasts in my Instant Pot. And of course, you're going to hear the word Instant Pot a million times today, because this is literally what I use a lot, all the time. So I could do something like this. I'm going to put 3 pounds even of chicken thighs in Instant Pot. I will pour a jar of salsa verde over it, and then I might throw in a couple of pieces of garlic. And then I just let the Instant Pot do its job for about 20-25 minutes. So literally all I'm doing is I'm putting the chicken in the pot, I'm pouring the salsa verde over it, and then that's it. It's done. It's literally done. It's maybe 3 minutes. That's all it takes. And then once it's ready, then I just shred it with 2 forks, and now I shredded chicken. You can do the same thing with, for example, pork. So this is what I did last week. I had pork shoulder, also known as pork butt. So I cut that into cubes, and I did literally the same thing. I put it in an Instant Pot for the jar of salsa verde over it, and the same thing. I think I set the timer for 30 minutes or so. And then when it was done, that's all the work that I literally did, right? And then it was done, it was done. And I had so much meat left for the next 3 days, right? What else can you do? What are some other easy protein sources? Like I said, I typically do two. So my example was, well, I cook up some steak for this dinner that I'm preparing now, and then I have leftovers for tomorrow too. And at the same time, I might throw in some pork or chicken in the Instant Pot and let it be there, let it cook there. It's literally hands off. But what else could you do? You could also cook up some ground beef in a skillet. So I typically do 2 pounds at a time. So it's going to be 1 pound. I throw it in the pan and then just add some seasoning, whatever seasoning you like. I like the one that we have. My mother-in-law sent us from Hawaii. It's really tasty. It's kind of like spicy. I think there's ginger, pepper, salt, and something else too. And I just add that to my ground beef. I cook it up. I do 1 pound, and then I do the second pound, and that's it. Everything goes in the container. Everything goes in the fridge. What else could you do? You could also throw some salmon in the oven. So I again like to use ButcherBox. This is where I get my salmon from, and it's so easy. You take them out of their individual bags. You pat them dry with a paper towel. You put them in the oven, and it's literally 10 minutes. 10 minutes, and it is done at about 400 degrees Fahrenheit, right? And it's done in 10 minutes. So you can eat right now, and then you can leave the rest for the next day. You could also do something like salmon burgers, which is something that I keep in the freezer just in case. I don't eat them every day, but it's more like if I don't have anything else left, then I will have it. So these salmon burgers are from Costco, and also they're frozen. I put them in the oven. Again, literally take them out of the bag, put them in the oven, leave them in there for 10 minutes. I think it's 20 minutes. And that's it, right? You don't have to like do a million things there. Like, as I mentioned, most of these protein sources that I'm talking about here right now, it's like, take it out, put it in an Instant Pot, walk away. Or take it out, stick it in the oven for 10 minutes, walk away. That's it, right? It doesn't require so much work. And, if you start thinking, oh, I have to make this recipe and that recipe, and there's like 7 million different ingredients, well, yeah, then it's going to take a lot more time. But do you need that? Does it have to be that complicated? Let me tell you, my plates are very, very simple. There's protein, there's some vegetable, and there's some grain or potato. And that's it, right? That's literally it. It doesn't have to be a fancy, like I don't know, casserole or lasagna or whatever. If you like these things, whatever, do it. Make sure that you lock this stuff right. But it can be so much easier than that. Literally think protein, vegetables, grain or potato. What is it going to look like? And then just do it. Okay, so we covered protein. Of course, there are some other options too. You could have, instead of ground beef, you can do turkey if you like turkey better. You can maybe do shrimp if you like shrimp. There are so many options, and none of them takes a lot of time at all. Now, the next part, of course, is to cook up some vegetables. And I really like roasted vegetables or steamed vegetables. And if you are a salads person, you can do a lot of salads too. And the way to make things really fast and have them ready when you are ready to eat is to prepare them. So cut them, wash them and cut them, and then have them ready in the fridge. So let's say that you like roasted vegetables like I do. So right now I really love all kinds of squash. I just bought a really big kabocha today. I like delicata squash. I like acorn squash. I like butternut squash, spaghetti squash too. Not maybe quite as much as the other ones, but everything else I love it, especially kabocha, right? So squash like that. Zucchini is the one that you can put in the oven and roast. You could roast peppers, but peppers, honestly, I'm lazy and I don't want to spend a ton of time. So peppers, just like cutting the little seeds out and all that, takes just a little bit more time. So I don't do it too often, but I do cut the squash in cubes and I put it in the oven. Sometimes I also roast some potatoes in the oven, and I literally take out 2 big sheet pans, right? On one of them, I put the cubed squash, and on the other one, I put, for example, the cubed potatoes, or it can also be zucchini or whatever you happen to like, and then just put it in the oven. You don't even have to be that specific with the temperature. I typically do around 400 for most of the things, but I'm not very, very specific about the exact texture or whatever. So for me, it's just vegetables. I gotta eat them. I kind of like them as long as they're soft, as long as I can, chew them properly, it's going to be fine. It doesn't matter to me personally, like how firm exactly, how soft exactly. I'm like very easygoing like that. So if you're like that too, great. Then you can, of course, also roast other root vegetables. You can roast some carrots, for example. This is why I like the fall. I like the fall flavors, like pumpkins and carrots. They're kind of warm and cozy, I feel like. So I like eating them. And then you can also make a bunch of stuff, of course, surprise in Instant Pot. So what I like to do in Instant Pot is broccoli and Brussels sprouts, and they both take literally just a couple of minutes to cook in Instant Pot. You can also cook your potatoes in Instant Pot if you want to. They take a little bit longer. They take about 15 minutes or so. But for more tender vegetables, such as broccoli and Brussels sprouts, you would literally put the vegetables in the pot and then set the timer for 1 minute only. Okay, just 1 minute. And as soon as it's done, as soon as the Instant Pot beeps, you just do a quick release with your and then let the air out so it doesn't overcook. And there you have it. You have your Brussels sprouts and broccoli ready. Like I mentioned all the time, I'm lazy. I don't want to spend a ton of time more than I need to. So lately, what I've been doing, even with broccoli, is that I buy the florets, right? So it's not the entire head. It's like cut into florets, but it's not the small florets. It has the big stem and everything on it. So it's kind of like a bigger chunk of broccoli. And I put those in my Instant Pot. I don't even cut them into small pieces. I don't do that because who cares, right? Why do they have to be in small pieces if I can bake or cook the whole thing, right? So I just do it like that, and I keep it very, very simple. Now, if you are a person who likes salads a lot, then one way of making sure that you actually eat those salads and don't let the stuff go bad is to wash your vegetables and then pre-cut them, so that you can throw them together when it's time to eat. So these are my tips. And again, of course, this takes a little bit more time when you roast your vegetables because it's probably going to be about 30 minutes in the oven. So you kind of have to, be there and take it out. It's not like Instant Pot that you just leave it there. But still, even if it's, you cook, you wash your produce, you wash your squash and carrots or whatever, and then you cut it. Maybe the cutting takes you 15 minutes or so. It actually doesn't take that long. It doesn't. Probably takes like 5 to 10 minutes. And then you put it in the oven. You put two big baking sheets, full of the vegetables that you like to eat. The cutting time was maybe 10 minutes, and then you bake it there for 30 minutes. It's just really minimal time. You don't have to spend a lot of time at all. So now we already have at least 2 protein sources ready for the next week, and we have a bunch of vegetables ready for the next week, right? You're already winning. See how simple it has been. And you have at this point maybe spent 20 minutes of everything. That's literally it. Okay. Then what else? Rice. Rice is something that I like to have ready also because it is a high carbohydrate food. It's very energy dense. It is great. It fuels your workouts. Don't be afraid of eating rice or oats or any of that. So rice is great. It does not have to be brown. If you like brown rice, eat brown rice. If you like white rice, eat white rice. If you like some other colored rice, don't overanalyze it. Just eat your rice. So if you are a rice cooker, super simple. Of course, I make mine in Instant Pot. So after my vegetables are done, I quickly wash the Instant Pot and put some rice in there and then cook it. So this is literally you press the rice setting and then you can walk away. It just takes, again, maybe about 15 minutes or so, but it is hands off. So once you have washed your rice, put it in the pot, started the pot, it's done. You don't have to worry about this anymore. So rice is definitely one of the things. If you like some other grains, you can do other grains too. I typically do rice. And then what else do I like to do? So sometimes I do boiled eggs too. So this is something actually that I do several times a week because I freaking love hard-boiled eggs, especially after I learned the crazy tip that how easy it is to peel them once if you make them in Instant Pot. I think I shared this one time on episode 2. If you missed this, you have to hear this. It's going to change your world. I promise. It totally changed mine. So what you're going to do is you're going to put a little bit of water, maybe half a cup or cup. It doesn't actually matter how much if it's half or a full cup of water in the bottom of your Instant Pot. Then you put the little metal thing inside there, and then you can put 6 eggs on top of that little metal thing. Then you start your Instant Pot, and and then you set it for 5 minutes, right? And after the time is up, you hear the beep. You let it sit there for another 5 minutes, and then you do a quick release, and then you put your eggs in ice cold water with with some ice cubes, and then you peel them after 5 minutes. So this is a little bit more timing involved in here, but it's so worth it because the peel literally comes off. You can peel the eggs with one hand if you wanted to. So basically, this is what it looks like. It's very, very simple. And I also have a lot of other things in my fridge that are always ready that I always buy. If you are in my Facebook group, you have seen several videos of what I buy from Trader Joe's or Costco. So if you're not in my Fit and Fuel Facebook group and you want to see these videos, make sure that you join. So what else do you have them in the fridge? So I typically have Greek yogurt, I have berries, then some fruits, and I do have protein bars. I admit it. I mean, I can eat very healthy things. Some of you have seen that I recently have started eating raw beef liver because of the health benefits. They're really amazing. They are great health benefits, and you can hardly ever find any food on the planet that is as nutrient dense as raw beef liver is. So I personally eat an ounce every day, and also drink adrenal cocktails. I'm doing a lot of healthy things, but I also have my little things where I'm not that perfect. And one of these things is that I do eat a protein bar every day. I know it's not the healthiest food, it's not the cleanest food, but also I've never said that I'm the healthiest and cleanest like a health nut person on earth. This is not me. So I do have, in addition to, yogurt, berries, fruits, I do have protein bars always in my fridge. In fact, I just now got mine delivered from my favorite protein bar brand, which is Barebells, and I have a ton of them in my fridge now. I'm really excited to try the pumpkin spice flavor. So I have that. And then what else are the quick snacks? So I may have things like crackers. I have, avocados, little random tiny things that I like to have in addition to what I just mentioned. And I also have some so-called like emergency proteins. For example, I may have some canned salmon. I have some canned sardines. These are pretty much the quick foods that I have. And then I also have ham and cheese in the fridge as well that I like to make wraps with. And of course, I always have a lot of eggs. So this is stuff that I have. And so next, let's talk a little bit about what does my eating then look like. Maybe that will give you some ideas, but let me just tell you, it's nothing fancy. It's nothing great. It's nothing like, oh my God, like 7-course dinner. It's not like that. What I eat is so freaking basic, you guys. And it doesn't have to be anything super specific if you don't want to spend a ton of time in the kitchen. And if you're okay with like simple flavors and you don't, it doesn't have to be absolutely, I don't know what kind of Jamie Oliver level cooking. It really doesn't have to be like this. So what does a day then look like for me? What do I eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? And how do I then use these foods that I have made during my meal prep? So my breakfast usually is either a couple of eggs with leftover or pre-made protein source. So that could be that beef or ground beef or chicken that I mentioned before. And then I eat 2 or 3 eggs with it. And I typically have a slice of toast also. Sometimes I have bacon. I have like a couple of slices of bacon, but typically it's more like a leftover, like high protein food. It can be eggs, the way I just mentioned, or it can also be a tortilla wrap. So I like to buy tortilla wraps from Trader Joe's, the high seed, something I can't remember the brand right now, but I make that and then I put some mustard, I put some ham or sliced turkey on it, also a slice of cheese, and then I use some leafy greens and I just roll it up, and this is like a quick snack. So oftentimes my breakfast is actually in 2 parts, because I do work out in the morning around 10 or 9 sometimes, or sometimes 8. So it's more like 8 or 9. And then before that, I always want to make sure that I eat something, because I'm not a fan of fasted workouts at all, especially for women. So I have a breakfast that's, typically around maybe 300 calories, like a smaller one. And then when I come back, then I eat another half. So let's say that I did that tortilla wrap before I went to the gym. And then I came back and now I had my eggs and sausage, or eggs and steak, or eggs or a little bit of chicken. So this is typically how my breakfast looks like. And then before lunch, at some point, I have a little snack. So this lunch is either before lunch or then after lunch, between lunch and dinner. And that's usually then that bar that I told you that I do eat every day, or sometimes it's a bowl of Greek yogurt with some protein powder. I really love using Legion. It's my favorite right now. It changes, sometimes I use a collagen protein. There was a little bit of time when I mentioned my dental surgery that I wasn't actually allowed to have dairy because I was taking antibiotics, which I don't love, but it is what it is. And then because Legion contains dairy, I had to do collagen. So I did collagen protein. And then non-dairy yogurt. So I did something like this. So this is a snack. And I typically put some berries on it, sometimes have a few rice cakes, a little bit of nut butter. So this is the snack. And then lunch and dinner actually where I use a lot of these pre-made foods that I just told you about. So lunch could be, it's literally like one of these proteins that I just made, right? Salmon burger, salmon steak, chicken thighs, chicken breast, ground beef, steak, whatever. And then the vegetables that I roasted. So pumpkin, carrots, potatoes, zucchini, broccoli, Brussels sprouts. These are the typical things that I have. I don't eat all of them at once in every single meal. Typically I have like one or two of these vegetables and one protein. And then dinner is very, very similar to lunch. It's just now that the other protein that I made, or sometimes it's the same. So for example, yesterday I had this pork dish, I can't even call it a dish. It's literally pork made in Instant Pot with salsa verde that I mentioned before. So I had that for lunch. I had the same thing for dinner. Now I just had a little bit different vegetables, but I'm using the same roasted vegetables that I made the day before, and this is my dinner. So super, super simple. Lunch and dinner is where I mostly use these meal prep foods, and it's so easy. It's literally just put them on a plate. And like I said, it doesn't have to look fancy. It's just, okay, here's my protein, here's my vegetables, here's my grain. So I either have rice or potato. So this is the higher carb source for me, and the rest is protein and vegetables. And that's what it's like. Also, every single day I have some chocolate. Right now, I'm a big fan of Trader Joe's Pound Plus. I eat that. I usually have 2 squares every single day, sometimes more, sometimes less. Occasionally, I have some ice cream. If I like it, if it's if I want to have it, if I feel like it, then I have it, but definitely not a daily thing for me. So the chocolate and that protein bar are kind of like my sweet treats that I have every single day. And then what about eating out then? Well, I typically eat out only once a week, and this is what I tell. If you have goals, and especially if you have like physique goals, if you want to lose body fat, then it cannot be super frequent thing. It's really, really hard to control what goes into your mouth, the exact ingredients and exact amounts. It's very, very difficult to know how much you're eating. So, and also, honestly, I just feel a lot better when I eat at home. And have you ever had this moment where, you're maybe traveling and you'll be traveling for a week, and at first it's so much fun to try all the new different things and go out to eat every dinner and every lunch. Then you kind of get tired of it, and you're like, I just want to get home to my, I don't know, to my salad and broccoli, right? So honestly, just eating home most of the time just makes you feel physically better too. And that's why I usually eat out only once a week. Sometimes it's twice. And typically that once a week tends to be on Saturdays. We go hiking often on Saturdays. And this is the thing where I'm just like, I want to have my burger. So every time after our hike, pretty much always I go and get my burger. I don't like fries too much. I don't have my fries, but I do want to have a big juicy burger with like really good meat in it. So this is what I love, and that's it. Sometimes there's ice cream as a dessert, whatever. But this is one of the meals that I have out. And if there ever is another one, then I don't know, it really has to be a situation where like, we actually don't have anything at home. Maybe it was a really busy day, or maybe we're gone half the week or whatever. Just don't have stuff in the fridge, but it's very rare that there's the second meal out. Of course, sometimes when you have guests or whatever, then we might do that, but it's definitely nothing common at all. So this is what it looks like, meal prep 101, and how do you then use it? Use those meals that you made in your everyday eating. I hope this was helpful for you. And if you need any more help, any more tips regarding your meal prep, how to get started, what to do, then I hope this gave you some ideas. But if you need something else, then please let me know, and make sure that you also join my Fit and Fuel Facebook group, where I talk about it a lot. Just recently, actually, I shared a list of foods that you should be buying every week to stay on track with your goals. And it's going to make your life so much easier, and you're going to get the results that you wanted. All right. I hope you joined my Facebook group. Thank you so much for watching or listening. And if you have a moment, please leave me a review, a really good one. I would appreciate a 5-star review. All right. Thank you so much. And I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.